Okay guys, we're looking at trail marker number 4. This is the last one of the whole year, so you really got to focus in and watch this video until you understand all of the 8 questions. These are going to cover a lot of things that are really going to help for Algebra 2 next year. The first skill is solving a linear equation, so I need -2, and I get -2x minus 24, minus 3 stays there, and then that's 22 plus x. Now I need to combine like terms, -24 and -3. They're on the same side, so I'm not adding any of them. I'm just combining like terms. So I get -2x minus 27 equals 22 plus x. Now I'm going to start moving constants to one side and the variables to the other. So I'm going to move this x to the left side by subtracting it. So I get -3x minus 27 equals 22. Now I'm going to move the -27 to the other side. So I add 27 to both sides. And I get -3x equals 49. And then I'm going to divide by -3 on both sides. And I get x equals a -49 over 3. Okay, question number 3. I'm going to just go down the left side and then the right side next. If you notice, we have 2 factoring questions. You're only going to get one of them on each one, but you have to know how to do it, so you need a little bit extra practice. You multiply to c, which is the last number, the constant, and then you add to b, which is the variable, which is next to the x, so it's 7. So what multiplies to 10 and adds to 7? 5 and 2. So I write it as x plus 5, x plus 2 equals 0. Set them both equal to 0, and I can just subtract them separately. So x equals a -5, and I subtract 2, and I get x equals a -2. Always going to get 2 answers here. Okay, same skill. Multiply to -40 and add to -6. 2 numbers that do it. Things that multiply to 40 are 4 and 10. That might be it then, because it has to add to -6. So if it adds to -6, then it's got to be a -10 and a +4 equal to 0. So I'm going to add 10 to both sides, and I get x equals, that's a 10, not a 16. I get x equals 10, and I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides, and I get x equals -4. Those are my 2 answers. So multiply to c, add to b. Okay, write the equation of the line given 2 points. First thing I need is the slope, and it walks me through it, then the y-intercept, and then the equation. So m equals y minus y. So -7 minus 13, y minus y, and then x minus x in the same order. So I went from right to left. I got to go from right, which is 2, to left, which is 9. So let's simplify that. -7 minus 13 is -20, and 2 minus 9 is -7. Okay, so there's my slope. Positive, this can just simplify to 20 over 7. Now the y-intercept I have to solve for. Okay, so I'm going to take my equation, which is y equals 20 over 7, which is the slope, x plus b. Notice how I have 3 variables, but I can plug in one of these points for 2 of them. So let's plug this one in. -7 equals 20 over 7 times x, which is 2, plus b. Okay, so let's multiply together. 20 over 7 times 2, I only think about it as 2 over 1, so I multiply my numerators, and I get 40, and then I'm multiplying my denominators, and I get 7 plus b. Now I need to subtract 40 over 7 from both sides. Okay, a little side work over here. If I subtract -7 minus 40 over 7, I need like terms, so I'm going to have to make this in a denominator of 7. The way to do that is to multiply by 7 over 7. So I get -49 over 7. If you don't believe me, simplify -49 divided by 7, which gives you the -7 that you started with. But now we have like terms. -49 minus 40 more is going to give me -89 over 7. That's what's going to go right here in my equation. Go back to the equation that we just worked on. So now I have b equals a -89 over 7. Now 7, does that go into 89? It does not, so it stays as -89 over 7. So my slope here is 20 over 7. My y-intercept is -89 over 7, and my y equals m, which is 20 over 7x minus or plus an 89 over 7. So y equals mx plus b. There's the m, and there's the b. Okay, down at the bottom, question 7. I need to graph this the same way I would graph a line, so y equals mx plus b. So +6 is the y-intercept. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to graph the slope. Down 3 to the right 2. Down 3 to the right 2. But the tricky part is the fact that because this is not or equal to, so not or equal to is going to be dashed, and less than or equal to is going to be solid. So because it's not, I have to draw a dashed line. That's my best attempt at a dashed line. And now I need to figure out, am I shading? above it or below it. One easy way to think about it is less than, you always think below. Okay, if it was greater than the y, then it'd be the above. You could also test 0, 0, because that's a point in this region. 0 is less than negative 3 over 2, 0 plus 6. Well, 0 times anything is still 0. Plus 6 is 0 less than 6. It's true, so I shade in that region. Okay, here we go. What method is used to find x? How do you know? Well, we can use Pythagorean theorem. So let's check this out. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I'm going to do x squared plus 6 squared equals 13 squared. We know this has to be the c because it's across from the right angle. X squared plus 36 equals 169. X squared, I'm going to subtract 36 from both sides to get the x squared by itself. 169 minus 30 is 139, minus 6 more is 133. And then square root both sides, and I get x equals the square root of 133. It's got to be positive, not plus or minus, because it's a side length. Okay, question 4. The building is 60 feet high. We're given that. The angle of elevation from the position on the ground is 62 degrees. There's our angle. Nice. How far away, this is supposed to be a theta, there we go. How far away from the building is the ground? So this is going to be how far away in the ground right here. Round answer to the nearest hundredth. This little SOHCAHTOA, I'm given one side and an angle. So I'm going to label opposite, I'm going to label adjacent, I'm going to label hypotenuse. We don't know anything about the hypotenuse, but I do know the opposite, and I'm using the adjacent. So that's tangent. So the equation is tangent of the angle, always, equals the opposite side, which is 60, over the adjacent side, which is x, TOA. So now what I need to do is I need to multiply both sides by x, so I can get x out of the denominator. So I get x times tangent of 62 equals 60. Now I'm going to divide by tangent of 62. Divide by tangent of 62. Remember, tangent of 62 is just a decimal. So if I take out my calculator, I'm going to take 60 divided by tangent of 62. If you get tangent of 62, it's around 1.88. So I take 60 and I divide by 1.88. I get approximately 31.91. And that's in terms of feet because it's a distance. Okay, this next question, 6, I already started over here because I have 2 of the sides of the right triangle, so I did the little Pythagorean theorem over here if you want to check it out. A squared 23, b squared we don't know, and c squared is 30. So I got the square root of 30, 371. Okay, now solve given the right triangle, find the angles. Okay, so I only need to find one angle because then I can just subtract from 180 to get the other angle. So here we go. If I'm going to use this angle down here in the bottom left, I'm going to label adjacent, which is down here, opposite, and the hypotenuse. Well, I'm going to use adjacent and hypotenuse because I don't want to have to deal with the square root of 371. So I'm going to move my screen down a little bit so I can get some more space. Okay, so adjacent and hypotenuse is cosine. So cosine of the angle we don't know is adjacent, which is 23, over hypotenuse, which is 30. Remember, whenever I want to solve for angle, I have to do inverse cosine or inverse trig. So 223 over 30, which gives me approximately 39.9 degrees. Now I know this is 39.9 degrees theta, and that means that because this is a right angle, I can just subtract that from 90. So I should get 50.1 degrees. Add those up, you should get 90, which we do. And then b we already solved for, which is square root of 371. Okay, one more question here in the bottom. So remember, for just to sum up question 6, that you have to find one angle and you can just subtract from 180 to find the other. The last one, proportion, cross multiply. 16 times 4 is 64. Cross multiply again equals x squared. Square root both sides, not 2x, always x times x. So if you want to write this down, equals x squared. Square root both sides, I get plus or minus 8. You're going to get 2 answers here because if I look at this question right here, it's a plus or a minus because this does not represent a side length. Or if I go back up to here, x represents a side length, so it has to be the positive. Okay, so take all this work. I know it looks like a lot. Take it all into perspective here. We got a lot going on. 5 looks like a challenge, so let's focus on that. Finding slope, finding the y-intercept. 6, you got to use trig. 4 and 6, you got to use trig. 3, we got to learn how to factor. You're going to use that over and over and over again in Algebra 2. And then Pythagorean theorem twice. Graphing a line. You guys got to do this. Solving a linear equation for question 1. You guys can absolutely do this stuff. Good luck.